Okay, hair is still wet. This is life, guys. We're gonna have to deal with wet hair in this episode. And welcome back to my channel, which is all about knitting and sewing and generally living the craftiest life possible. My name is Katie and you can find me pretty much everywhere on social media as Miss Lavelli, although I'm most active on Instagram. We also have a Ravelry group for the podcast, which you can find by searching Inside Number 23 on Ravelry, and that's where you can get involved with things like knit-alongs that we have ongoing and also giveaways, of which we have had a few recently as well. I am coming to you as always from Hertfordshire, which is just north of London in the UK, where I live with my husband Emrys, our pug puppy Rolly, and it is a little bit dreary today, I am not going to lie. I was hoping that the sun would peek its way out from between the clouds and allow me to have some decent light to film this episode, but unfortunately it looks like a lot of the lighting is going to have to be finagled with in editing to be able to give us a nice bright finish. So if the colours are a little bit off in this episode, I apologise, but we're doing the best with what we have currently. So yeah, episode 78. I actually can't believe that we are nearly at 80 episodes. That feels quite momentous, and I think we might have to have maybe a little party theme for episode 80, something fun. I don't know, but that'd be a fun thing to have planned for a couple of episodes away. But yes, welcome back to any of my long-term viewers. Thank you so much for coming back to spend a little bit of time with me this week, and hello if this is your first time watching. I really hope that you enjoy spending a little bit of crafty time with me. Apologies that the episode is slightly later this week. I do usually record on a Thursday and upload on a Friday, but this Thursday Emrys and I actually had the day off together, and that happens very rarely, so I decided to make the executive decision to not record on Thursday, to be able to spend some quality time with my husband. And we had a really lovely day together, so I don't regret that decision at all. And you're still getting a podcast this week. It's just a little bit later than anticipated. So yeah, I hope that that is okay with you. If you do want to get in touch with me regarding anything to do with the podcast, please feel free to drop me an email. My email is katie@insidenumber23.com, and I'm currently doing a big email overhaul. I'm going through a lot of the backlog of messages that haven't been replied to, so thank you for your patience if you have not yet had a response from me. But yes, there is a new system being put in place to help me with the emails, so big thumbs up about that. I would ask if you want to get in touch, please do use the email, because I do not reply to messages on any other platform. So if you're going to send me a Ravelry message or an Instagram direct message or anything like that, I don't go through those messages regarding the podcast. I literally just go through the email. So do please drop me an email. How many times can I say email in the space of a few minutes? Before we get started, one more thing. We actually have a prize winner this week, yay, for the Harry Potter knit-along. I am currently hosting a year-long knit-along on this channel, and at the end of every month I am drawing a prize winner. I left the September prize winner for an additional week because I didn't open the finished object thread very promptly. So I let you guys have some extra time to get your projects finished and entered in there. So I went through the post this morning, I locked it, and I drew a winner at random. And that winner was, let me just see here, post number 129, who is Anne, All Knit Sings on Ravelry. So congratulations, Anne. I'm so thrilled that you are a prize winner this month. Anne knitted a really beautiful Ravenclaw themed sweater, which was stunning, and you are actually going to be receiving this gorgeous skein of Little Bean Loves yarn, which is really beautiful. It's in the Amortensia colour. I have a skein of this myself in my stash, which I love, and also some stitch markers which are Harry Potter themed as well. So please drop me an email, Anne, and let me know your contact information so I can get these put in the post for you as soon as possible. But congratulations again, and I really hope that you enjoy your prizes when they get to you. For everybody else, the finished object thread for October is now open, so do please feel free to get your entries in for October. We're being super flexible with this knit along, so there's still time to enter. We will have an October, November and December drawing, and then in the new year we will also have the grand prize drawing. So that's only 3 more months left. I can't believe how quickly that has all gone by, but thank you to everybody who has been involved so far. It has been a really amazing experience, and it makes me happy every time that I see that you guys get just as excited over knitting Harry Potter themed things as I do. So thank you very much. I said that was the last thing, but there is one more thing, and that is to remind you that the giveaway for the brushwork yarn by Blacker Yarns is still open for another week. So again, head over to the Ravelry group and check out the post that is sticky at the top of the threads in order to enter. All of the information is in that post, so do please just head over there and enter, because it's an amazing prize, and Blacker were incredibly generous to send us an incredible amount of brushwork, and I want to keep it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give it to you guys, so head over and enter for that. Okay, let's get started with all of the crafty goodness, shall we? I always tend to start the podcast with what am I wearing? And although I am wearing something me made today, the beady-eyed amongst you will have noticed it. It's not exactly something that falls into the background, is it? Which is this little number that I am wearing today. I'm not actually going to be talking about it now. It is my one sewing kind of piece for this week, so I will be talking about it more in So What. But yes, I am wearing a me-made object today, this kind of swanky blouse, which I'm really happy with, but I'm going to put it to one side for a second, and we're going to talk about it later in So What. So try not to get too excited about that, or do get excited, because sewing is a very exciting thing. But moving on from what am I wearing, because I'm not talking about that right now, I do have a little bit of owl post / stash enhancement to talk about this week, which I am really happy and excited about. So last week, a week ago today, I had the incredible pleasure of meeting up with my dear friends Nikki and Amy in London. We got together, it was the week after my birthday weekend, and lovely ladies that they are, they wanted to spend a bit of time with me around my birthday, and I'm not going to say no to an offer like that. And essentially we went to Loop, we had a lovely wander around Loop, and then we kind of got ourselves set up in a pub which is local to that area, which is a pub that I really love to go to, and we kind of snuggled down and knit and chatted for I think between 5 to 6 hours in the end. I mean, they're lucky because we did buy drinks and have food and all of that kind of thing, and it wasn't too busy when we got there initially, so I don't think they were too annoyed that we stayed there for that amount of time. But it was great. It was a really lovely time. But out of that actually came a couple of goodies. Now, Nikki and Amy, beautiful baby angels that they are, they actually got me some birthday gifts, but I'm saving those for my birthday haul video, which I hope, fingers crossed, will be up later this week. So keep your eyes peeled for an additional video this week. But Amy also kindly acted as a yarn mule for me, and that was for lovely Annie of Knitting It Up Yarns, who I believe is based out of Canada. Now, she sent Amy through a package with one of her yarn clubs, and she kindly, very kindly included something for me. Amy let me know at the time that that had happened, but I said, why not just bring it along when we next meet up? And so she did, and I am so excited about this yarn because it was for a Stranger Things yarn club, and if you've been watching the podcast for a while, you will know I am really a little bit obsessed with Stranger Things. I absolutely loved it when it was on TV. I am so excited about it coming back. It's a matter of weeks now before it comes back on Netflix, and I'm just I'm so excited. The new trailer came out for it yesterday, I believe, so that was amazing, and I absolutely adore it. So thank you, Annie, for sending me your Stranger Things yarn club. Now, it came with lots of lovely bits and pieces, but the pièce de résistance is definitely the yarn. Oh my goodness. So this yarn, I mean, look at it. It's insane and incredible, and I adore it. But what makes me adore it even more is the name, which is What About Barb? Now, Barb, I think, is probably one of my favourite characters in any television programme ever. I think she is incredible. She's kind of head to head with 11 out of Stranger Things in terms of being my favourite character, but this yarn, it's just perfect, and it really is the type of colourway that I think that Barb would have appreciated. So I really, really love this. There is the label, so knitting it up, and look at these colours. Isn't it glorious? I cannot wait to knit with this. I'm very tempted to just knit a pair of vanilla socks so that the colours will speak for themselves without too much detracting from that in terms of pattern. So yes, this is amazing. What I would say, because it was a yarn club, I don't think that it's available to kind of purchase on its own, but perhaps Annie is going to do that at a later date, I'm not sure. But for now, do go and check out her Etsy shop. I will put her details in the show notes down below so that you can go and give her some love, because this is just, it's marvellous and I love it. And thank you so much, Annie, for sending it my way. That is the owl post, but like I said, there's also a tiny bit of stash enhancement, which is kind of a stash enhancement, but kind of not, because it's not yarn and it's not fabric and it's nothing like that. But whilst we were in Loop, although I was incredibly tempted to buy an inordinate amount of yarn, because that is the type of person that I am, and I'm actually going to be talking about that a little bit later in General Waffle this week, Amy was kind of carrying this yarn for me, and I was umming and ahhing over it, and she said, look, do you want me to persuade you to buy it or to leave it behind? And I was like, please tell me to leave it behind. So both my lovely friends kind of comforted me and said, you don't need it, you have all this other lovely yarn. Remember you said about this that you got for your birthday? And it was fine. I was okay to leave the yarn behind. But one thing that I really could not leave behind was this lovely piece of goodness. Now, this book has recently been released by Clara Parkes, and it is called A Stash of One's Own. Now, this is a collection of stories and essays all about knitters and their stashes, and I am so happy to have this. Now, it's a beautiful book in itself. It's got this lovely dust cover on it. It is a hardback book, so it's just a lovely thing to have. I'm a very kind of tactile person, so the physical elements of a book are very special. And I mean, look, this is what it looks like without its little dust jacket on. It's this beautiful kind of almost between burgundy and chocolate brown colour with gold, well, not gold, kind of cream embossed writing on it. It's stunning. But also the way that the pages have been cut, it's very raw and kind of tactile, and it's just a very, very, very special thing, and I'm so happy to have it. I must admit, I haven't started reading it yet. I am still finishing up with a couple of other books that have been on the go for a while, and I want to be able to commit to this book fully when I start it. But I was drawn to buying this actually by listening to one of the most recent episodes of the Pomcast podcast, which is obviously the podcast which is done by the lovely ladies of Pom Pom Quarterly. It's an audio podcast, and if you don't currently subscribe to it, I would really, really, really recommend it, because it's just a really lovely listen. It's not super often that they upload. I think it's maybe once a month or twice a month or something like that, I'm not sure, but every time they upload, it is an absolute gem of a podcast. And in the most recent episode, they actually had a reading from this book, and it was listening to that reading that basically made me know that I had to buy this and it had to happen, and I'm so happy that I have it. Once I have read it fully, I'm going to do a little review on the channel, so look forward to that in the future. But just from listening to that extract really did make me want to buy it. So I would recommend, if you want to have a little taster of what this book is, download the most recent episode of Pomcast and see what you think. Okie dokie, enough talking about bits and pieces and enhancements and prize winners, and all of those lovely things are very lovely, but I know that what you're really here for is the crafty content, the knitting and all of that good stuff. And I'm happy to say that it's time for What's on My Needles, because I have some really fun things to talk about this week. I'm feeling great about my knitting this week, and also I'm feeling unashamedly unapologetic about my knitting this week. And that is because I didn't actually do any work on my ebony cardigan this week, which was kind of #1 project from last week's episode, which I'm still loving. It's in the beautiful baby camel silk blend from Travel Knitter, and I love it, but I was kind of feeling a little bit of frustration about working with fingering weight yarn and wanting something a little bit more bulky because the weather's got a bit colder. And I talked about the fact that I was going to be casting on the Netherton cardigan. And guys, it happened. Oh, good grief. I've managed to put every single project that I'm working on at the moment into one project bag, because I've been carrying it around with me to and from work on my commute, and putting a little bit of work on each one of my projects kind of as I go. My project bag that I'm using is this one. It's huge, it's as big as my head, and this actually is one of my own making. I really love this project bag, and I'd forgotten that I had it. I made it at this time last year because I made it to take away with me on holiday to Florida, because can you believe that was a year ago now? For those of you who've been with me for a while, last year I took part in Vlogtober and vlogged every day of our trip to Florida to go to Disney World and Universal Studios, and we went to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, and it was so much fun, and I needed kind of a horror film kind of Halloween-y themed bag to take with me. So I ran this up before we left, and I really love this bag. It has a lovely red lining, which makes me very happy, and it's also padded. I put a little bit of squishy interface in it, kind of quilt batting, so it's nice and squishy, and it just makes me really happy. It's got all of the kind of old school Universal monsters on there. So it's got Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy, the Wolfman. It's great. It makes me happy, and to use it at this time of year I think is particularly appropriate. But enough rabbiting on. Like I said, I was wanting to cast on the Netherton pullover. Now this is actually a pattern that is in the first edition of Pom Pom Quarterly. It is the cardigan that was reworked for the republication of issue 1 of Pom Pom, which I bought just before PomFest, and I purchased the yarn for this project at PomFest as well, which is this beautiful yarn. It's a DK weight yarn, Champagne Supernova by the Wool Kitchen, which I absolutely love. It's 100% BFL, and it's glorious. And last week I hadn't yet cast this project on. This week, gosh, it's like yarn juggling. It's a little bit hard to do. I have this much. So it is a top-down construction, knit in one piece. So this is kind of how much I have done. It's a little bit screwed up because it's been folded up in the bottom of my bag, but I've made some serious progress on this, you guys, and I love it. I'm just getting it out now and seeing it. I'm really tempted just to knit on it again. That's how much I'm enjoying working on it. And the yarn, can we talk about this yarn from the Wool Kitchen? Look at this. I showed a picture of this yarn of how it knitted up on Instagram this week, and so many of you were getting so excited about it. But yes, it creates this majority being very natural, which is lovely, but then with these crazy little neon pops of colour, which don't pool, but do tend to kind of be in a similar area, which I really like. I think it looks incredible. And I do have my little progress keeper, also Halloween themed. That's my Jiggles and Beans progress keeper, which is a little lollipop that's been eaten and he's not very happy about it. I had a few minor issues with the pattern right at the beginning of construction of this cardigan, because it is one of those patterns which does things in a way that makes my head ache, which is do this whilst doing that and do this at the same time, and it's kind of a bit it feels a little bit like rubbing your tummy and patting your head at the same time. It is something that can be done, but it requires a little bit of thought, and I was hoping that this would be a slightly more mindless project. It wasn't. It is now, definitely, because now that I have separated the sleeves and I am just working on the body, so you can see my little sleeve holes there and there, it's very much more mindless. I'm still doing a couple of decreasing bits and pieces, but a lot of it is just kind of stockinette goodness, which is lovely, and I just, I can't wait for this to be finished. I was thinking very much about this colourway earlier today, because I have recently done a lot of fabric laundry because I'm wanting to do a massive sewing marathon of basic bits and pieces that I've been wanting to sew up for a very, very long time. And the majority of colours that I have are very autumnal, very rich colours. And I've come to realise that there are two different sides of my personality with the colours that I'm attracted to. One side is, like I said, the autumnal browns and mustards and orange and red and all those burgundies and beautiful things. Those appeal to me on such a deep level, but there is an equally large side of my personality that just responds to what I kind of think of in my brain as like a unicorn, 80s unicorn on crack. Which is basically that I love neons and bright colours and pretty pastel-y, girly type, you know, without being too stereotypical, colours. You know, I have a lot of different colours behind me in the background here, and that's because I do have these two kind of different sides of me that exist in the same person. But this really, really appeals to that slightly bonkers unicorn type part of my personality, and I love it. I love how it's knitting up. This yarn is dreamy to use. It's really, really lovely. The stitch definition is extraordinary. It's beautiful, and I'm loving the fabric that this is producing. It does need a block. One thing that has happened is that it's a bit lumpy looking, I would say, but that I think is mostly because of the fact that it's been screwed up at the bottom of my project bag rather than the fact that there's anything wrong with the yarn. But I am loving it, and I can't get enough of this yarn. It makes me so happy. So yeah, kind of the perfect project for me right now. It's not hugely demanding, and because it's a chunkier weight, I want to wear it now because it's getting colder, and it also means it knits up super fast, which is another big thumbs up as far as I'm concerned. Now, I did say that there was more than one project living in this project bag, and it's not the ebony cardigan, because the ebony cardigan has taken a week off this week, which is fine. Like I said, am unashamedly unapologetic about the fact that I haven't worked on it, because what's the point in knitting on things if they're not the thing that's making your heart happy at that particular moment in time? There's really no point. Do what makes you happy when it comes to your crafting, which is what I did this week, because I have a new cast on. And I do feel really quite cheeky for having a new cast on, because all I've been kind of saying recently is, oh, I want to get things finished and I want to complete projects and I don't want to start new things until I've got things off the needles. And that is all still incredibly true and relevant. But equally, I feel that part of the getting things off the needles and kind of, you know, feeling like I'm clearing the decks a little bit is just as relevant when it comes to yarn that's currently in my stash. And I realised this week that there are so many projects that are waiting to be cast on in here that I have bought yarn for and have had kind of lurking in the back of my brain for such a long time that it's okay to cast on new projects, because this yarn has been sitting and it's been waiting to come out and play for such a long time. And it's actually really quite freeing and quite wonderful to take yarn that I purchased a while ago and I've been thinking, oh no, I need to finish this and I need to finish that before I can do it, and actually just setting it free and creating something wonderful out of it. And there is a particular project that I have been dying to cast on for a really, really long time, because I've already knit one version of this project, and that is the Colourfield shawl by the lovely Kemper Ray. Now, before I talk about that, I do just want to say Kemper of Junk Yarn the business and Junk Yarn the podcast has recently started podcasting again, and I'm so happy about it. So do head over to her YouTube channel and go and watch her latest episode. She is absolutely wonderful. She's one of the first people that I used to watch before I podcast myself. And I wouldn't have really started, I don't think, if it were not for people like Kemper and Kristen of Wool and Vine Yarns, who really inspired me to get started doing this. So I love her. I think that you'll love her too. So go and show her new episode some love. So all of my biases, that word doesn't sound right, but I'm biased when it comes to Kemper because I think that she's amazing. But I have knit her Colourfield shawl previously. I knit it for my mum, and I knitted it out of two gorgeous colourways of hedgehog fibres, and it's beautiful. I'm really hoping that now it's colder, she will have more opportunity to wear it, because I actually knit it kind of towards spring. It was a Mother's Day gift for her this year, and then obviously the weather warmed up and there was really no option to wear a shawl. So now that it's cooler, I hope that it will get some wear from her. But I purchased that yarn at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. And I also purchased myself some yarn for the Colourfield shawl whilst at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. Hers, like I said, was hedgehog fibres. Mine was Le Bien-Aimé. And I've been knitting with this yarn. Now, I am really naughty and I don't actually have my ball bands with me. So I know that this colourway is called the Shire, this gorgeous, rich green, which is just... ugh, I love it so much. This colourway, which is this kind of mauvey, speckled grey with hot pink and little bits of green and little bits of yellow in it. I don't have the ball band with me right now, so hopefully I will locate it so that when I'm editing I can add the colourway into the notes down below so that you'll know what colourway it is. But these were the two colours that I wanted for the Colourfield shawl for myself. And I am... This is why I love this project so much, because I found this last time that I knit this for my mum. I started this project, let me think, 3 days ago. 3 days, I think, and I have been working for a lot of that time, okay? Do you want to see how much that I've done? Look at it! Look! It's nearly finished, okay? Look at it. It's amazing and I love it, and oh, it's one of those things, and I remember thinking this when I knit this previously, and I don't often knit multiple versions of the same pattern, so that's kind of again a testament to how amazing this pattern is. It's a joy to knit up, but it has this really, really lovely kind of pattern that goes through it. I'm gonna pop it up how it will be. So it's triangular, and basically you knit these different sections. So you have a slip stitched kind of section, and then stockinette, and then the slip stitch section, and then by the time you get to the end you do a couple of rows of alternating colours at the end there, and then you do this really beautiful border along the end in the contrast colour, which is of course the Shire colour, the lovely green that I have, and it creates this really, it's again using kind of slip stitches, and I'm not going to go into specific details, but it creates this really gorgeous kind of wide ribbed effect, and I love it. Oh, I love it so much. It just makes my heart happy. And I remember the wonderful thing about knitting on this is that I remember knitting on the version that was for my mum, which was two different colours. I believe it was in Jelly and Film Noir by Hedgehog Fibres, which are not my colours at all. Jelly is a ridiculously neon hot pink, which I picked specifically for my mum, who is a very, very big kind of pink fan. And I would have never worn it, but knitting on it made me so happy, and this is no exception. And in fact, I think this is making me even happier because I know that it is for me, and because it's in colours that literally make my heart explode with joy. Because look at the speckled goodness and the amazingness of that green and the variegated colour. I'm so happy with it. I just love it. I love it so much. It's the perfect relationship between beautiful yarn that I was so excited to use, because this is the first time that I've ever knit with Le Bien-Aimé, and this is their DK weight merino yarn, so it's 100% merino, and it's glorious. It's so squidgy, and I knit on this and I kind of lose my mind at how beautiful it is. It's like a big beard of amazingness. It's been a really lovely project to knit on because it's been so quick, and also to release these skeins of yarn from the stash has been just such a pleasure and such a joy. And I can't wait to wear this. That's very much what this is for me. Is it's 100% a process knit, because it's such a joy to work on it and see it grow. It grows very quickly, so you're constantly moving through different sections, which is wonderful. But it's also 100% a product knit as well, because once this is finished, I'm going to block it that same day and I'm going to be wearing it straight away. It's been a while since I've knit something kind of this style of shawl in a heavier weight yarn. The last project that I really did like that was my Void shawl, which is of course a heavier weight yarn because I think it's worsted weight as opposed to DK. But I love really fat, squidgy shawls to wrap around my neck when it gets cold. So this is going to get so much wear, and I love it. Oh, just happiness on so many levels. So yes, check out Kemper's pattern, check out Le Bien-Aimé yarn. Happy, happy days. The last thing that is on my needles this week is technically something that is off my needles. And last week I talked briefly about the fact that I was doing a bit of an overhaul and wanting to get projects finished, that type of thing. It's still very much the way that I'm feeling. And I mentioned that there was a project that I was going to be frogging. This is the first project that I have frogged. I do not know if others will follow. At the moment there are no other plans for frogging. This was the main one. But I feel great now that I've done it. And the project that was frogged was unfortunately my Hufflepuff cardigan. It's really sad. My Hufflepuff Pride cardigan that I have been knitting for a while. I do have a project page for it on Ravelry, which I now think is going to either be deleted or just left up as a frogged project. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that, and it's been a while since I've added projects to my Ravelry page. It's not bringing me much happiness doing that, so the less said about that the better. I know that so many of you would love it if I did upload more things to Ravelry, and so I'm sorry that that's not something that I do on a regular basis. But I am in the process of developing another possible home for finished object photos and that type of thing, so we'll see what happens. So again, watch this space. There's a lot going on in the background at Inside Number 23 right now. There's a lot of development and that type of thing, so yeah, just hang on for me, guys. I decided to frog this back. You can see I have a lovely selection of balls of yarn that have been frogged back, this beautiful colour, which is actually a yarn that I purchased from Knit Picks. It's their DK weight Capra yarn, and it's in the turmeric colour, and the Capra is an MCN base. I got this in the January sale of Knit Picks, so I got quite a lot of money off it, and I had 10 50-gram balls of this. So basically I'd got to the point where I had knitted 5 of these up into the cardigan, and I still have 5 left that are untouched. I decided to frog this back because, for one thing, knitting on it was turning into a real trial. It wasn't making me happy. It felt like an obligation knit rather than something that I was really excited to work on. And it also got to the point where, although I loved the idea of having this kind of varsity style Hufflepuff cardigan, when I was really taking a good look at my wardrobe, I don't think it would be something that I would wear on a regular basis, and that was really the main reason that I decided to frog it. Combine that with the fact that on my actual birthday this year we went to Harry Potter Studios, and my lovely parents gave me the gift of the replica Hufflepuff Quidditch sweater, which I had been lusting over for a very long time. I now have a Hufflepuff sweater in my wardrobe. I have the official Hufflepuff Quidditch sweater, so I don't have a Hufflepuff shaped gap in my wardrobe any longer. So I thought it would be best to, rather than kind of continue putting time and energy and effort into a project that I didn't think I was going to wear and that wasn't making me happy, even though I had done a considerable amount of the work because I'd knitted the entire body up to the armhole, and I had also done, I think, the right front. I literally just had to do the back, the left front, and then pop the sleeves in, and the job would have been done. But I'm very much of the belief that if you don't like it when you're knitting on it, then you're not going to like it when it's done, which I learnt from the Knit More Girls podcast. So yes, it's all frogged back. I am going to soak the yarn and kind of ball it properly because it's quite crinkly inside the little balls that I've got there. So that's my job for later this afternoon. Happy days. I do actually really like re-skeining my yarn. Is that weird? But I find it quite therapeutic. But I do have a project in mind for this yarn because I wanted to make sure that I did use it for something awesome, because I love this colour. Mustard is something that has been kind of sitting in the back of my brain for a really, really long time. I don't have a really mustard anything in my wardrobe right now. The closest that I have is my wickerwork pullover, the Michelle Wong pattern that I completed recently, but that is a kind of green mustard. It's not really a true yellow mustard, which this is, and I wanted to make sure that I kind of picked a project that I would, number one, enjoy knitting on, and number two, would really do justice to the colour of this yarn and the beauty of this yarn. And so looked through a couple of projects and bits and pieces that I'd been wanting to try on Ravelry. And what I think this will be, and I'm not 100% sure because I do tend to change my mind about a lot of different projects, but I'm pretty sure it's going to end up being the Kerry Town pullover, which is a pattern by Annie Lupton. And when I saw this on Ravelry, I couldn't remember who had knit this previously, but I knew that I'd seen it somewhere before. And then I realised that Jenny of the Handmade and Woolen podcast, as was, actually has knitted a version of this herself, and it is beautiful. She did a lot of alterations to the pattern because originally it's quite loose fitted and it has 3/4 length sleeves. She kind of redesigned it so that it was a lot more close fitting for her and had longer sleeves, but I really love the version as is. I like the oversized quality of it. That's something that I'm very, very much attracted to at the moment. I do like kind of more close fitting sweaters, but I have a lot of those and I want to have a couple more slightly more cozy oversized bits and pieces in my wardrobe. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to be knitting it exactly as is in the pattern, and I've worked out how much yardage that I have here, and I'm pretty sure I'm spot on for the size that I want to knit as well. So that's most likely going to get cast on relatively soonish because this yarn is exciting me. Frogging this project back and getting the yarn freeing it from this project that was making me a little bit depressed, actually awoke all kinds of happiness in me, and I'm really inspired to create something beautiful out of this gorgeous yarn. But I think it will most likely get cast on once I have completed the Netherton and the colour field that I'm working on at the moment, because I think that that's probably going to be relatively soon, within the next couple of weeks. I mean, the colour field, I genuinely feel like it will be at the end of this weekend that that's done. So it's not going to be long before new things are going to be on the needles, and I'm really happy and excited about it. And I can't wait to get some more sweaters in my wardrobe. Mostly because Amy Florence of Stranded Dye Works and Stranded Podcast has knit a ridiculous number of sweaters this year, and I am jealous. I am green in the face with jealousy. So I need to be able to compete. Knitting's not supposed to be a competitive sport, and yet I feel like I really want to compete. I'll never be able to catch up. But basically, I just want more sweaters. Next up, I'm actually going to be answering some Dear Katie questions. Now, for those of you who don't know, Dear Katie is my kind of interactive section of the podcast where I answer questions that have been emailed into me to my email, which, as I said, was katie@insidenumber23.com. So if you would like to possibly be included in a Dear Katie segment in the future, if you drop me an email with the subject line Dear Katie, I will keep it to one side and I will possibly answer it in a future episode. So please do that. I have quite a lot of questions that I really want to answer. So this is probably going to be a relatively regular segment from now on, just because I really love hearing from you guys and having your input into the episodes. It's really great. It's really interesting. So please do keep your questions coming. But I have 2 questions to answer this week, which I have on my phone. So forgive me if I look down for a second. The first one was sent to me by Laura. So hi Laura, and thank you so much for your email. You say, Dear Katie, to me you are a fashion icon, which is so sweet. I love your sweater / dress / tight / boots combo and plan on emulating it all season. What brand or type of tights do you wear? To me, tights mean sweaty nylon that let in all sorts of drafts, but yours look cozy, opaque and comfy. So for one thing, Laura, that's incredibly kind of you, thank you. And to be honest, the combo that you talk about, the sweater, dress, tights, boots combo, has been my go-to combo for the majority of my adult life. I absolutely love layering up lots of gorgeous, squidgy things to wear, and that's one of the reasons why autumn is my favourite time of year. But yes, tights. I do wear a lot of very thick, opaque, kind of 120 denier, is that how you say it? Tights. I'll mostly buy those from kind of either John Lewis because it's close to me, or H&M often do kind of multi-packs of those kind of tights. There's literally just black tights that have got a very high denier. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know they have a count on them. The higher the count, the thicker they are, and I like really nice thick tights to wear in autumn and winter. But the other type of tights that I wear are the kind of woolly tights. I have found those tights in loads of different places. In the UK, they tend to stock them at a lot of different shops when the weather changes. I've seen them in Topshop. I've seen a lot of different ones in H&M. I've seen them in Next. I've seen them in John Lewis. I've even seen some in Boots. I love my woolly tights, and yeah, I couldn't live without them, particularly as it starts to get colder. I'm actually sitting here thinking, how many tights do I have left in my wardrobe? I really need to get some more. I love tights, they're great. But yes, thank you so much for your question, Laura. The next question that I'm going to answer was sent in by Zoe. So thank you again for getting in touch, Zoe. It was lovely to hear from you. And your message is, hi, my name is Zoe. I'm 15, and as much as I adore knitting, I'm having trouble buying yarn. It's just so expensive. I have a teenager's budget, and with the hindrance of a disability called ME, that means I can't get a Saturday job like other girls my age. I'm really struggling to find anything cheap enough for me to buy. I've heard some people have been sent yarn for free by companies for test knitting and for advertisement. How does this work? Do you have to be a podcaster or professional knitter to be able to receive this? How do other knitters afford to buy all this yarn? Help. So Zoe, I completely agree with you. Knitting is a very expensive hobby. I think a lot of people go into creating a handmade wardrobe because they think it's going to be a cheap alternative to buying things on the high street. But like a lot of kind of hobbies, when you get into the deep end and you go down the rabbit hole, as it were, it very, very quickly becomes very apparent that there are lots of different ways to do these kind of crafts. And you can do things on the slightly cheaper end, but you can also end up spending an inordinate amount of money. I know the amount of money that I've spent on yarn and fabrics throughout my life is a huge amount of money. I will hold my hands up and say that. As far as I'm concerned, it's not just the finished object that I'm paying for, it's the hours and hours of pleasure that I get out of creating beautiful things. So for me, I think it's worth it. However, I completely empathise with the fact that you're working on a much smaller budget. I think when it comes to paying for things that you really, really, really want to do, sometimes it's worthwhile waiting, saving that money and spending it on the thing that you really, really want. That's what I would say to start off with. However, there are loads of kind of more inexpensive alternatives to buying large amounts of beautiful, beautiful yarn that costs a lot of money. Unfortunately, that does mean kind of steering away from indie dyed yarns in general, because something that's been handcrafted and has, you know, a one-person business creating it, it's going to come at a higher price because it's worth it, because you're paying for that person's time and their expertise. But there are lots of different yarn companies that do things on a much larger scale and therefore can offer lower prices. There are yarn companies like Knit Picks, for example, that I purchased my yarn for, my turmeric yarn. You'll notice that I purchased that in the sale. Sales are another great thing to keep your eyes open for. A lot of people do sales at specific times of year. So for example, we're going to be gearing up very, very soon to Black Friday sales, which there will be lots of yarn on offer. There will be New Year's sales when lots of things on offer. That's when I tend to make larger purchases, particularly with bigger companies like Knit Picks that I know very regularly will have sales and will have a lot of stock available and will reduce things. The other good resource, I think, is checking online. A lot of people like to sell yarn on eBay. People do destashes on Ravelry. You can get some really, really good deals, because if people are just wanting to free up a little bit of space, then you can obviously benefit by purchasing what they no longer want, but something that works for you. So I hope that helps in terms of the kind of costing issues, maybe giving you some ideas about how to get hold of yarn that's slightly more inexpensive for you. The other point that you made about test knitting and being sent yarn from different companies for advertisement and that type of thing, we are getting into a very different area when you're talking about that, because you are essentially saying that you want yarn in exchange for something else. So there is still a business transaction going on, but it's not a monetary one. It may be one for skills. For example, you're saying with test knitting, if someone sends you a skein of yarn to knit a product, then that can definitely be a thing. So you're basically getting yarn in payment. Or you're talking about yarn in exchange for publicity, so advertisement and that type of thing. So I would say, if you're interested in test knitting, that's an amazing thing to do. It's a really fun experience. It helps you get out of your comfort zone when it comes to knitting. And sometimes, yes, you do get certain benefits from that. So you may get yarn in payment. But I wouldn't necessarily say that that is the way to get yarn kind of on the cheap, as it were, because the test knitting experience is about a lot more than just what you may get in return. And what I would say as well, I know that there are a lot of test knitters who wouldn't offer you yarn either to knit the project with or as a form of payment. It's very much on a case-by-case basis. So I would say pursue that if you're interested in test knitting specifically. But if you're thinking of using that as a way to get your hands on yarn, it's probably not the best avenue to go down. The other side of this that you were talking about, which was being sent yarn for advertisement from companies, that's definitely something that can happen. It's something that I feel slightly odd talking about because it's never something that I sought out actively. I've never had to write to anybody or approach anybody and ask for things to be sent to me. As the podcast has kind of grown through word of mouth and through more people watching, I have definitely seen more people interested in sending me products for either review or just because. And I would say I'm very, very lucky and very grateful that every single person who's ever sent me a product has never demanded screen time on the podcast, which is, it's a really lovely position to be in. So thinking about actively contacting people and asking for yarn in exchange for advertisement feels a little bit odd to me because it's not something that I've ever had to do. And to be honest, it's not something that I really think that I would do unless I was in a very different place with the podcast, with maybe creating a business in itself. There are a lot of people who I know have transformed their podcast into much more of a business platform, which I have not yet done. I might do that in the future. Definitely, it's something that would appeal to me. But as I am now as a kind of podcaster, as a hobby, I don't feel that I'm in a position to be able to contact people and specifically ask them to collaborate because I don't have a kind of set business plan for it in mind, if that makes sense. Again, I think if you're seeking out this kind of an interaction with a company based purely on the fact that you want to get yarn for free, I think you're coming at it from the wrong perspective. If that's something that you really want to do, I think fantastic, go for it. Contact these businesses, get into a conversation, see what you can do for each other. But if you're just doing that because you're thinking about, I'm going to get things for free, I don't think that's why you should be doing it. And like I said, this is entirely my opinion, and please feel free to disagree. This is just kind of how I feel about the way that I do business with my podcast and how I would choose to do business if I ever went to do this on a more professional level. The things that you're talking about are both incredible things to get involved with. They are exciting. They're, you know, it's a big commitment to do both of those things, to be a test knitter and to kind of be, say, an ambassador for a particular brand. But I think it's worthwhile bearing in mind that there's so much more involved in doing both of those things. There should be more in that decision, I think, than just what you might get in return. So maybe for now, if that's your number one priority, maybe try some of the other things that I talked about at the beginning of answering this question, which I realise has taken a little while now. So I hope that that helps, and thank you so much for getting in touch. Whew, that was a lot of question answering. I'm going to move on now to some more crafty bits and pieces in So What? And I'm going to talk about my finished object. I am so happy. This finished object is, of course, my Melilot shirt. And that may not be the way that you pronounce this pattern, but that's the pronunciation that I'm going with because that's just how I feel about it. I enjoy saying Melilot, and if I try and say it any other way, I'm just going to get confused. But this is a pattern by Deer and Doe, who I love. It is a shirt that has two variations. It obviously has the short sleeve version and the long sleeve version. It has two different collar variations as well. You can choose to do it with a mandarin collar, so without the little Peter Pan element, and you can have a faux placket down the front of the shirt as well, which basically hides all of the buttonholes. So I did a combination of both of these versions. I did the short sleeved version with the Peter Pan collar and the single breast pocket, which is here. I literally just looked like I was pointing at my boob then, but I'm not. I'm pointing at the breast pocket that's on here. And I am incredibly happy with how this project turned out. I'm not really going to stand up to show it to you in any more detail because it's not that exciting. It's a shirt. There's only so many details that I can share with you on this shirt, but I think that it is a great pattern for a number of different reasons. For one, I think if you are thinking that shirts are something that you would like to get into, but you're a little bit nervous about construction and that type of thing, this is an amazing pattern to use because it has the incredible fact that short version does not actually have sleeves. This is all cut in one piece, and then you add the cuffs onto it, which means you don't have to worry about setting in sleeves or any of that, which can be very stressful. And it's very loose fitting. It's designed with a lot of ease, so you can see it's got ease. So again, you don't have to worry too much about fitting. So if you're hoping to make a shirt for yourself, I do think this is a really lovely introduction to getting into making shirts. I love shirts and shirt dresses, and this came together incredibly simply, and I love it. Another little detail that is really, really nice, a nice touch, is that all of the internal sleeves are actually sewn with French seams. Which basically is a way of sewing your seams, goodness, that's a lot of S's, sewing your seams in which you enclose all of the raw edges of seams whilst you sew. So you don't have to do any additional seam finishing, you don't need a serger, you don't need to pink your seams. Everything is just nicely enclosed, and it gives a really lovely professional finish, but it's relatively easy to do. So again, a really lovely introduction to a technique that you may well use on other projects in the future. Another little detail that makes me so happy about this is I decided to sew on my buttons with contrasting thread. So as you can see, my little buttons are sewn on with the same colour thread to match the flamingos of this fabric. This fabric is done by Cotton & Steel. It's a collaboration with Rifle Paper Company, and it's this lovely kind of light cotton viscose fabric. It's incredibly luxurious. I really, really love this, and I purchased this in New York at the Brooklyn General Store. This shirt makes me so happy. It definitely appeals to the 80s neon unicorn on crack side of my personality, being in this fun kitschy print with the cute little Peter Pan collar, which is just one of my go-to styles. I love it. And it did come together relatively quickly in the end. This has been one of the projects that's been sitting on my sewing table for a very, very long period of time because I just never got round to finishing it. It got to the point where all I had to do was sew the buttonholes and then stitch on the buttons. That was nothing. Other than that, it was entirely finished, and I'm just really glad that it's all done, it's all good to go, and now it finally gets to be in my wardrobe. I do hope that it will be in regular rotation. However, because it's getting so much colder now, I don't know if it's going to get a lot of time outside the wardrobe until kind of early next year, when fingers crossed it'll start to warm up a little bit. However, I do think that I could probably wear it with a nice thick cardigan over the top. But the short sleeves, I do get cold quite easily, so I'm kind of feeling that it might be on hiatus for a little while. But I wanted to wear it today to show it off because I'm so proud of it, I'm so happy with it, and I could definitely see myself making multiple versions of this shirt in the future. I really like how the cuff detail kind of pings out on the sides. I think that's a really cute little touch. I love this shirt. I want to wear it all the time, but I might have to wait until it's a little bit warmer. So my lovely friends, I have one more segment of the podcast to share with you this week, and that is of course General Waffle. General Waffle. And in case you don't know, this is the segment where I get to waffle on about anything and everything that takes my fancy. And I'm going to keep it quick this week because I feel like this episode's been going on for a little bit long. I feel like it's going to be a bit of a beast, but also the light is completely fading. It's getting dark a lot earlier than I anticipated because guess what? It's October and the sun goes down a lot earlier, Katie. You should have started this recording a lot earlier. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about something that I've been hinting at through the episode, which is really where I'm at when it comes to the projects that I'm working on and my stash in general. So after purchasing a stash of one's own, I have been thinking a lot about my own stash. All of these beautiful things that I have around me to work with and inspire me, and that's wonderful. It's absolutely incredible to be surrounded by beautiful things. I think I'm incredibly lucky to be in a position where I do have this gorgeous supply of yarn, where I have multiple sweater quantities of yarn to cast on, where I have fabric to make a whole wardrobe full of beautiful outfits. But at the same time, sometimes having this amount of stuff can be very, very restrictive and can actually be quite detrimental to your crafting life. And that's something that I have found personally over the last couple of weeks or so. You will have noticed that I have been going through projects, being quite brutal, ripping things back, casting on new projects that I know will work in my current wardrobe, because for me, my crafting is more than just creating beautiful things, because my ultimate goal is to have a 100% handmade wardrobe filled with beautiful things that work well with each other. And I know why I have got into this position with my stash, because I have this kind of fear, which I think is a fear that a lot of people have. It's the fear of missing out. It's the reason that when I'm on Instagram and I'm scrolling and I'm seeing all of these beautiful things that people are working on, or a friend of mine is working on a beautiful project, or a shop that I really like has just created a new colorway of yarn that's limited edition and it's absolutely beautiful and I must have it or I'm going to die. That kind of feeling comes from the idea of, if I don't get it now, I might miss it and then I might regret it for the rest of my life, and how terrible would that be? And I don't want to sound as though I'm saying that buying things and treating yourself to beautiful things is a bad thing, because obviously I don't, considering the amount of yarn that's recently come into my stash. But I think for me, my energies have been so driven into acquiring new things that I haven't been putting an equal amount of energy into the creation using the things that I currently have. So for now, I'm taking a step back from the purchasing side of things. I don't want to say that I'm on a yarn diet or anything like that, because I don't believe in diets. I don't think that diets work, because the second that you tell yourself you can't have something, you automatically want it, be it yarn or chocolate or anything like that. But something that I really do want to focus on is using what I currently have, because what you can see behind me now is just a small portion of the stash that I have. It's a little bit of yarn. I have a lot more than just the yarn that's behind me here. I have, as I've said, fabric, I have sweater quantities, I have projects that are languishing, that could be ripped back, that could be made into something else, that could be completed. What I want to do more than anything is start taking enjoyment in the stash that I have, because it's beautiful. I'm so lucky to have it, and I want to really just take a moment to celebrate the beautiful things that I have, instead of worrying that once they are out of the stash that there will be this massive gaping void that needs to be filled, because there will always be opportunities to fill that void and get more yarn. And I think for my own kind of mental health at the moment, what I need to do is, rather than always worry that I'm going to miss out on something and that I'm lacking in things and that I need to buy more things in order to be happy and in order to actually be able to enjoy myself, why not take a step back and look at some of the things that are in here that have been in here for such a long time. I mean, I'm just looking at this yarn now and I've just picked out maybe 2 or 3 skeins that I'd completely forgotten were even there, and that's really awful. I don't want to live that kind of a life. So here is me being honest with you guys. I think we have a pretty honest relationship. I think I've shared quite a lot of honesty with you over the last couple of years, but I want to shop my own stash. I want to enjoy the yarn that I have here. And if new yarn comes, that is absolutely fine. But my real emphasis and my real joy, I want to come from what is here, because look at it, it's amazing. Something else that's going to come along with that, as I go through this yarn, if I find that there's things in here that are not bringing me the amount of joy that I thought they would, I think that I feel a de-stash coming on. I have fabric that could be de-stashed, I have yarn that could be de-stashed, but that's just where I am, and I think that that's okay. I think that it's okay to not be worried about saying no. It's something that I worry about all the time. I have a big fear of saying no, being it to people or experiences, and it comes from that fear of missing out or not being involved in things or being the person that's left behind while everybody else is working on the newest thing, and that can be sad and it can be scary, but I think sometimes you have to take that step back and just enjoy what you have. And it might not be as interesting as getting new things all the time, and yeah, that's great, but just think about using all of this yarn. Oh, so exciting. Seriously, I want to knit all of it. And that's a great way to feel. Yeah, bit of a waffly waffle, but I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about a lot of things. So that's everything for this week, you guys. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Inside number 23. If you have done, please give me a thumbs up or hit subscribe down below to be kept up to date as to when I have new videos on this channel. If you like the videos, if you comment on the videos, if you subscribe, it does a lot of good things for the channel. It helps us kind of get seen by more people, which is always wonderful, so that more people can join our ridiculous online family. So thank you if you have done that. I really appreciate it, and you are all awesome and incredible. I hope you all have an amazing week. I will be back on my regular schedule next week. There will be an episode on Friday, so keep your eyes peeled for that. In the meantime, I hope that you have lots of knitting and sewing and other glorious things to keep you happy and warm and fuzzy and joyful inside over the next less than a week until I see you next. I am sending you all so much love. Happy sewing, happy knitting, and I'll see you all really soon. Bye!